Hello my lovely peeps, this is Kat aka Kakibot, and if you follow my life then you know that I have recently got married here in the beautiful Edinburgh, Scotland. And if you follow this channel, chances are that you love the city and you might even consider getting married here. Because getting married in Edinburgh is actually really cool because you can get married in places like here, or here, or even here. Which honestly was a surprise to me, but I'm gonna talk a bit more about this later. Welcome to this video. This video is all about 7 tips that will make it easier for you to plan a wedding here in Edinburgh based on my experience. And to give you some context, my experience was that our wedding was kind of like a middle budget. I think that for some people it might be low budget. For me it was definitely a much higher budget than what we thought. We spent about £10,000 on a wedding that involved like 25 people at the ceremony, but then later on about 40 people at the party, which is where you really like burn your money. Yeah, so let's get into that. If that's the sort of wedding that you're looking into, or maybe slightly smaller, then I bet this is going to be helpful to you. But some of these tips will be definitely useful to pretty much any size of a wedding. So yeah, let's get right into it. Tip number 1 is, as I mentioned earlier, in Edinburgh you can get married pretty much anywhere, and it's amazing. So if you have a favorite like hidden garden or a park or like a green view of the city, chances are that this is going to be covered by the city council's like parks and green space department. You basically just need to shoot them an email. They will shoot you an email back with a form. Sometimes they take a bit of time, so don't leave this to the last minute. Yeah, they are not great communicators, but otherwise it's really cheap. In most of these parks you have to pay about £180 to use the space for a wedding. I think that gives you probably about like 5 hours, but don't get me wrong, they don't like, you know, cordon it off. Like, people will still walk into your wedding. As you can see in some of the pictures from our wedding, they are just like random tourists sitting in the back. You are inviting an element of chaos into your wedding, so just keep that in mind. If you're like a control freak, you might not like that. You can get married at such iconic places in Edinburgh as Calton Hill, or something like semi-similar to that, like the Burns Monument. I actually had someone in the comment section previously saying that they got married at the Burns Monument, or even right on the Arthur Seat if you want to. You will probably not be able to get your 80-year-old grandma up there, but yeah, like honestly, live your dreams. The only place where it's not possible is the physics garden, which ironically was the place where we got engaged, and we super wanted to get married in the physics garden next to the palace. But for that we had to contact basically the Queen. Okay, not the Queen, but the Queen's offices, and they weren't very open to it, let's just say that. But in the end we ended up in Dunbar's Close, which is one of those amazing hidden gardens of Royal Mile, and honestly I couldn't be happier. I think that it worked out really well. Through the Parks Department you can also get married at the grounds of Lauriston Castle, which is kind of closer to the airport. It's a really beautiful space. It has like a little Japanese garden. That one is more expensive. That one costs about £500, and also with all of these you have to pay about £200 more if you want to put up a marquee. I think that just like umbrellas in Edinburgh, like if you're worried about the weather, like it's really the wind you're worried about. Like if you put up a marquee and then like it blows off into the Firth of Forth, like I warned you. So maybe save your £200 to buy like 2 extra bottles of some nice champagne and just get windswept and wet. That's what I would do. That's what I was planning to do, but our weather actually worked out really great. Tip number 2 is start with your photographer. So this, I would say, is probably a good tip for anyone who isn't in the UK surrounded by like a big social bubble of family and friends. Sometimes it can be it's just intimidating. Like for me, I genuinely didn't know where to start, and it turned out starting with a photographer was a great point, because these are people who professionally are surrounded by suppliers and they think a lot about, you know, event venues and how well the photography is gonna go on there. And I think that for a lot of us, the wedding photography is really important. So like when you're picking a venue, it's really good to run it by your photographer. So I would say if you're starting to plan a wedding here in Scotland, maybe start with your photographer because they really will help you. Sometimes they help you just by giving you some know-how, some experience, and others actually specialize in, I don't want to say like selling you that know-how, but they do have like an add-on service of giving you access to their directory of suppliers and like independent businesses and venues, and they will also be willing to reach out to those on your behalf. Personally, I am not someone who enjoys calling up people or writing emails because, you know, wedding planning, if you're doing it all on your own, there's gonna be a lot of that and it will just like grind you down. So your photographer can actually do this for you. And our photographer actually specializes in this. This is Solen. She started the Elopement Society. I'm pretty sure she started it during the lockdown when the elopements, which, you know, as you probably know, is kind of like a mini micro wedding where usually just two people go in the middle of nowhere with their celebrant and their photographer. They say their vows and that's it. Like basically you have a bunch of beautiful photography, but you didn't have to spend almost any money except for your dress and like makeup and travel and photographer. So I can really recommend Solen as someone to get in touch with, even if you're planning only a tiny wedding. But yeah, she does have experience with also like small weddings, micro weddings. I would say anything up to like 30 people or even 50 people. Because to me, like the idea of throwing a party for 50 people, that's like a big wedding. But here in the UK, the standard might be up to like 120 people. Like you invite your accountant and his wife. Like I would not do that. Though I felt a bit bad. I think that we should have invited our accountant. He saves our butt every year. If you're interested in some other tips for photographers who are Edinburgh or Scotland based, I think Rachel&Tonie are also a really nice photographer couple. They were actually kind of my backup. They were super nice when communicating with them, so I would reach out to them if you don't want to work with Solen or if she's busy. And also we have a friend who is actually really good at elopement shoots, very like moody and dark and almost like vintagey. She did our engagement shoot. Her name is Bernadeta Kupiec, and I'm gonna leave all the contact info in the doobly-doo. Please support all our local photographers. They will love you for it, and yeah, you're gonna have such great photographs. Tip number 3, try to reach out to all of your favorite indie venues, cafes and shops and suppliers. Because when I started planning the wedding, I thought that the only reasonable way of planning a party like that was to go with like a caterer or to go to a venue that basically supplies you with their own caterer. But pretty soon in that process I noticed that that gives me so little wiggle room and it didn't feel like it was ours, and that was such a big part of the concept. I think that personally, when I started even thinking about getting married sometime down the line, I knew that what I would want to do is to really like connect all of these favorite spots, these favorite like food makers and bakers, and like bring them all together and then bring my family into it and let everyone try all my favorite food from Edinburgh. And it really worked out for us that way. I mean, it is extra work and some of these places do not have like a delivery system, so you might have to ask your friends or family to pick up some food at the morning of the event and drop it off at your venue. It does bring in some extra work, but it is very budget friendly, I think, because these are places that don't really work with like, you know, a wedding tax, a bridezilla tax, which obviously means that there might be some space for, you know, things being forgotten or messed up, because like places that do specialize in weddings usually are very meticulous, like they know that like this is a wedding and everything has to be like in tip-top shape. Some of these places, I mean, I'm not talking now from my own experience, this is just something I was worried. Everyone we worked with, everyone we made an order with really gave it their best. We got such good food that felt very down to earth, tasty, everyone loved it, got such good feedback for it. To give you an idea, I'm gonna talk about some of the suppliers that we went for. I'm gonna have to check my list because it's been a month now, and even though those were like some of my favorite foods, it's been a lot of kind of mix and matching, and I'm not sure if I would remember all of it if I didn't check my computer. Okay, I got my computer now, so yes. So first of all, we got amazing pastries from Think Pastry. By the way, most of these places were featured in my previous videos, so maybe I'm gonna pop like an you know, a thumbnail for those videos. If you want to know more about these suppliers, check them out. We also got a bunch of people visiting the wedding party who had like dietary needs. You know, some people had a peanut allergy, some people had a gluten allergy, so we wanted to have something for those as well. And because our cake did not really cater to those needs, we wanted to get some sweet treats that would. So we went to Sugar Daddy's Bakery. They cater to all sorts of allergies. They are very meticulous about that. So we got like 3 kinds of cake from them. It was very affordable. It was like, you know, $2.50 per cake. Amazing. And you know, everyone who is gluten-free or, you know, allergic to peanuts was happy. Although I did find that some guests who were not in those groups would just like swarm around those cakes and eat them anyway. Then we got banh mi's from the banh mi bar. I actually kind of hope that I will go to banh mi bar later today. Anyway, yeah, we got veggie, the tofu ones, and the classic Hanoi chicken and pate ones. We also got some summer rolls from them. Tasty stuff they delivered. We also got multiple flavors of marshmallows from Marshmallow Lady, and now we're getting into some of my big favorites from the Chocolate Lovers Edinburgh video, as you might watched before. Chocolate Tree sent us a big box of Cranachan and whiskey caramel chocolates, so I went specifically with those 2 flavors. They don't actually have that on their website, but you can reach out to them and basically say, I want the 50 chocolate box, but I only want these Scottish flavors in it, and they're totally up for it. And from Edward and Irvin, we got some of their amazing chocolate frogs, which just, they just give so much like joyful, sort of fun look to the buffet table. And for later on, when everyone was happily sloshed, we also got some curry from Kebab Mahal. Those we featured in our Cheap Eats video. They are amazing. They are such a, there's like such a family-run business vibe, and you can tell also by their prices that they really want to serve their community. So again, like doing it this way, doing your wedding reception party this way, it really makes you feel like you're just kind of making yourself a part of this like tweed that is all these like little businesses, all these people who live in Edinburgh. I'm not very good at like regular socializing, so for me, doing it at least this way really meant a lot. While I'm at socializing and kind of like being a part of the community, I really want to give a shout out to Nicole. She's probably not watching this video, but she really saved our butt. She created these amazing grazing boards. I'm gonna show you a picture. Yeah, she did all of that for us for free, and she's the best. Also, our friend Uis, he put so much effort into making the event space ready for us when we came from our ceremony. So yeah, thank you, friends, and everyone else who helped. Like, basically our wedding was built around asking a lot of our close friends to help, and everyone showed up. And now, a month after, I feel so thankful for having such a great network of people who are willing to help. I mentioned event spaces. That's another thing that Edinburgh is good for, because like when you think about it, Edinburgh is a festival city, and that kind of means that there's a lot of event spaces, and those are cheaper than like proper like wedding spaces, because like when you think about getting married, I don't know, like at the Botanics, which is an option, it's a beautiful option, there, because they are ready for that wedding, obviously they will have some like wedding specific infrastructure, which is good, but at the same time they will give you that wedding tax. If you want to shop around and maybe get married in a place that's more like fringy, like we did. We had our party at Summerhall, which if you've been around, especially around fringe time, this is a place that's like lit with events and classes. It has its own distillery. It's right next to the meadows. I feel like it's one of the most like Edinburgh places ever. I love it. I think that having people over there was, again, like it really showed them what like my Edinburgh is like, and like most locals Edinburgh really. So it's kind of in like it's this stark contrast to getting married at, let's say, Edinburgh Castle, which gives you that like Instagram Edinburgh, which is fine, it's nice, and if you want to do that, go for it. But if you are on a budget and you want to have a very Edinburgh wedding, then trust me, there's so many places that will be willing to throw a party for you. They will throw in some staff to, you know, to man the bar, and it will actually be much more affordable. Tip number 4, why not try the shoulder wedding season? Because the main wedding season here in Edinburgh is mostly like May to September. I would say that you probably don't want to get married in August. Like, the amount of visitors is just too damn high. So you don't want to do that. But the shoulder months, so that would be April and October, I think do have some kind of special features to them. The main one obviously being that in April you get quite a lot of nice blossoming trees, and then in October you do get some autumn foliage. I think that obviously people might be worried, what about the weather? But honestly, here you will always worry about the weather. It really, like, I don't think that it really matters. If you watch my videos, you know that May and September might be the best weather. Like, when you, if you don't want to risk too much, then those two will probably be the most likely to give you a nice weather day. But honestly, like, in the 10 years, 11 years that I've lived here, I noticed that it's not predictable anymore. Like, the weather is just going insane now. Like, it's all over the place. So really, maybe look into those shoulder seasons, just because it might be cheaper to do so. And if it's not cheaper, then at least you're gonna feel like a lot of the suppliers, or like your makeup artist or your hair person, or your, you know, event venues might have more flexibility around the dates than it is in the summer. One more thing, I think that if you're getting married here in the summer, keep in mind that the days are very long, and if you want to get nice photographs around golden hour, then you will have to wait until like 9, and by that point you will be drunk and you will not take nice photographs. For me, it actually worked really well that, you know, at around 4 p.m. it was already kind of like a mild light, and then we got really nice light coming in through the windows around like 5. I think that for us, October worked really well. Admittedly, it was start of October. Definitely don't do it in winter. I think, unless like you have like a specific winter theme, like a Christmas theme, and you want to have a lot of like nighttime pictures, that it might work, but it's just not really kind of the traditional wedding look, I think. And here, like in winter months, especially like in like daylight savings time, it's just dark at like 3, really, so you would feel very pressed by time. Mentioning weather kind of lets me segue right into tip number 5, which is be weatherproof. Although, you know, with the caveat of, I think that what really helps when you're getting married in Scotland is don't worry too much about weather. Like, I got this from a lot of people, like, aren't you worried about it being rainy? I'm like, well, I'm getting married in Scotland, so I have to just make that a part of the planning. Like, it just might happen, might not. I did get some wedding umbrellas, but as I mentioned before, here, specifically in Edinburgh, the bigger problem is the wind. So perhaps if you're looking for an outdoor setting, maybe if you're getting to the parks department and, you know, you're communicating with them about the different parks you could get married at, I think that somewhere like Calton Hill might be beautiful, but it's very open to the elements. While somewhere like where we got married, Dunbar's Close, it's a walled garden and it's more or less like in a valley, so it's a bit less open to the elements, and it also has trees. This is one thing that we heard from the wedding planner at the Botanics. One of the spots where you can get married there outdoors is under the redwoods, which is actually a stunning place to get married. Like, I saw those trees and I like teared up. I love trees, I love huge trees. Those must be like the hugest trees in Edinburgh. And she was saying that, like, if it's raining, unless it's like a heavy rain, which doesn't happen that often in Edinburgh, the trees will actually shelter you a little bit, or, you know, little to medium bit. So yeah, I think that getting married somewhere like Calton Hill, you're really risking that, but getting married somewhere like Dunbar's Close, there are places to kind of hide yourself. I really don't think that you need to think about that marquee, especially like if you have a wedding of, like, you know, ceremony of 20 people, there's always going to be somewhere to hide. It's fine. Tip number 6, now we're going to get very Scottish. If you're getting married in Edinburgh or Scotland, then you should definitely look into some Scottish wedding traditions. I'm going to talk specifically about the 2 that we went for. These were actually both ideas from our celebrant, that was Mo from Few Ceremonies. Again, we got her contact through Solen, so I'm going back to the previous tip that like starting with your photographer is a good thing, because through her we met Mo, and Mo gave us all of these great ideas. She's a humanist celebrant, so you know, it kind of depends on what you're into, but yeah, we had a humanist wedding and it was amazing. And yeah, she came with these two ideas. One of them was the hand fasting, which is basically where the whole phrase tying the knot comes from. It is an old Celtic tradition of basically taking two either like fancy ropes or two like ribbons, and you know, each represents one family, and then you tie them around your hands, and you know, voila, you're one family now. I actually wanted to show you what we did our hand fasting with. So we got this tartan, which is Simon's Irish tartan, because that's where his family is from. What is it, the county of Cork? Yep. And then we got the second one, or they're kind of coming apart now, they're fine. The second one is like a traditional embroidered sort of check ribbon, which is beautiful. And I think that they kind of go together as well, like color-wise. They actually, like, they literally are put together with the same colors. It's a sign we were meant to be. No, I did quite a lot of art directing on my side coming into this wedding. That's why I was so stressed out all the time. The other tradition we did was, and I am now gonna butcher the pronunciation, we drank from a quaich. Thank you. We drank from a quaich, which is this little like cup with like two handles, and historically it's been used to symbolize, well, connection and also trust, because in the past when you would hand someone a quaich with some drink to share, then obviously you were using both of your hands, which meant that you can't use any more hands for like holding a knife for a stab. I'm happy to say Simon didn't stab me during our wedding. It's all good. You don't have to worry about me. I'm still here. This wasn't his long game. 10 years to stab a girl. Anyway, yeah. So we drank my favorite whiskey. Thank you for letting it be my favorite whiskey. We drank my favorite whiskey from the quaich, and yeah, then we shared that, I think, with some of the closest family members, despite COVID times. By the way, our celebrant brought the quaich. We didn't have to buy our own one. You can actually get them in like whiskey shops in like touristy areas. So like if you just want to get one as a little souvenir, you can ask for that. They are quite affordable, but you know, I think that to us it was really practical, that it wasn't another thing that we had to invest into. So yeah, thank you, Mo, for bringing your quaich. And the last tip, tip number 7, this one is boring. Look into the timeline of your paperwork. I was quite surprised that as a settled person, so like not a UK national, but just a settled person, I basically only had to provide the same paperwork that Simon did. So basically you have to have your birth certificate and you have to have a passport. And that's it. When I went back to Prague, the people at like the evil bureaucrats basically told me like, oh no, you're gonna need so much more than that. And I chose to trust the Scottish people who just were like, just a birth certificate is fine. Obviously, if you're from a non-English speaking country, you will need to get it translated by a certified translator, but it does not have to be a notary translation. So it doesn't have to be like the highest level of like, you know, like a court translation. It's okay if it's just a certified translator, which will cost you, you know, couple tens of pounds. Like, it's not that expensive and it happens quite fast. Talking of speed, you will need to deal with the paperwork basically 3 months before the wedding date at the earliest, but 1 month before the wedding at the latest. So that's like the golden zone. You will need to download the M10 form. You might be sent that by your celebrant. We got that from Mo again, and you will have to fill in one each. You have to be really careful that there are no typos. Then you bring it over to the registrar's office. It's inside a beautiful courtyard where you can also see like important Scottish people's handprints. I think it's a nice place to visit, even if you're not getting married. You can go there in person or you can post it. I think that going there in person, especially if you are Edinburgh based, is gonna be easier. If you don't have a settled status or possibly pre-settled status, if you're just coming here from another country to get married here, then I believe that the only extra thing you will need is paperwork that basically tells the local government that you are fit to marry. From what I understand, this mostly means like you're not already married, and yeah, that's pretty much it. But you will have to deal with that in your country of origin, and you will also have to get that translated. But overall, I think that like on that like bureaucratic level, it's quite people-friendly, much more people-friendly than back in Czech Republic, where again they told me I would need so much more done than I actually did have to get done. So yay, Scotland! You're doing it right. Oh, and by the way, if you're looking for a low-cost wedding or like a elopement, but not like in the middle of nowhere in the Highlands, but like a super cheap elopement within Edinburgh, the City Chambers is the place you can have that done. Okay, so that was my 7 tips for having a wedding in Edinburgh or Scotland. And now I guess it's time to, you know, appreciate that you're still here and maybe tell you more about our wedding. Honestly, I feel like I covered quite a lot of it in the previous section. There are some things that I am now realizing I forgot. Like, I didn't mention that one of the things that I wanted to do is to bring a bit of Czechness into our wedding. So I approached a local baker who's originally Czech, but she makes Czech bakes, and she made some kolače for me, which on Czech weddings is like a traditional snack that you give guests at the ceremony as they arrive. It was the best. They were so tasty. We still have some in the freezer. Yum, yum, yum. I can't wait to... Now that I'm thinking about it, I will probably go down and have more after this. Anyway, so yeah, hey, if you're looking for some Czech bakes, let me know in the comment section. I'm gonna point you in the right direction. And obviously, if you have any other question, absolutely, you know, get that discussion going. I am still kind of in that time where I quite like freshly remember everything that I had to do for the wedding. I don't want to think about it too much, to be honest. Like it brings back quite a lot of that like stress that I had to go through, because obviously if you don't have a wedding planner and you're doing everything yourself, the upside of that is that you have a very like custom-made, like bespoke wedding that really caters to what you want, but it also means that you don't have any like professionals to really lean on. Yeah, it was a lot, but yeah, we also had wedding pins made. We had wedding kind of postcards. That was a lot of work to do, but I am so happy I did it, and I think that it really kind of tied it all together as an event that was just genuinely so very much ours. And as I kind of got out of it, my main feeling was the pride in both of us for really like pulling through, making this happen. And the second biggest emotion I had was definitely thankfulness for all the friends who stepped up and helped us with everything. So once again, thank you everyone who helped with this ceremony and party. We genuinely would not be able to do this without you. We would probably just elope into the mountains if it wasn't for our amazing friends and family. And yeah, you're the best. I think that now I'm just gonna leave you to like a little video of shots from the wedding. So yeah, just sit back. And if you're interested in what our wedding was like, then here's some fun shots from the day. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you soon. Wedding. Are you airing out the cheese bug?
Yep.
It smells pretty bad.
It does.
Happy wedding to us.